Hello, everyone. So, why do we need to balance our blood sugar? A lot of people saying, oh, my blood sugar is going out of whack, but we really want to understand the root cause. That's why we have a dietitian, registered dietitian, Geetha, in our studio. Geetha is a registered dietitian and a diabetes educator for over 18 years. She has been conducting workshops, webinars, international level, and she's joining us from Bangalore, India. Welcome, Geetha.
Hi, Amita. Good evening. It's almost nightfall here in Bangalore, India.
Great, great. So let's just start with blood sugar 101, right? We assume that we don't know anything about blood sugar. So educate us, what exactly is blood sugar?
So we need some amount of energy for us to function on a day-to-day basis, and whatever food we eat, eventually the currency, like you have money, so we have blood sugars that's used for for all our activities. So that's what all the entire end product of digestion comes to. And for every part of us, that is every cell to muscle that works for me to even converse on this live today, there is blood sugar being used. So if you need the blood sugar to enter into your cell, so then again that's a complicated metabolic pathway. So blood sugar is basically essential for your living.
Wow, okay. But how much, what is the optimal levels? Like, is there an optimal level in our body that our blood sugar should be?
Yes, for a healthy individual, about 70 to 100 is a good fasting blood sugar, and glycosylated hemoglobin, which is over 100 days. So that should be ideally about 5.6%.
Okay. So, but what happens if, because, the blood sugar is going to fluctuate, right? Depending on when I wake up in the morning, I haven't eaten anything, my blood sugar is probably low. And then as I start eating, it starts going up, right? So, what happens if its blood sugar is out of balance?
Right. Yes, that's a very good point. There is, constant, change of your blood sugars, and it's quite dynamic. So, based on the kind of foods that you eat, the blood sugars will be impacted, and some sugary and highly processed foods can lead to insulin spikes. So, which means actually you lead into hypoglycemia. You actually have lower blood sugar because there's an insulin release when you eat a lot of sugary foods. So when you do not have regular or a normal blood sugars that is maintained, um, then it can lead to several complications. So one being, of course, with all the calorie intake and the processed food, there could be a risk of weight. So you can become overweight and obese, and that itself can have a cascading effect of metabolic syndrome. Now, syndrome X is where you have high blood pressure, dyslipidemia, your LDL or your good cholesterol maybe sometimes low, your triglycerides go very high, and that's not a good sign because there's a risk of cardiovascular disease. And there are also not just the risk of cardiovascular disease, it can also lead to uncontrolled blood sugars, then can increase your risk of pre-diabetes. And if you do not take care, from there's no returning back. Then once you are diabetic, it has a cascading effect, and there are other complications because it's a debilitating condition. There's it affects your eyes. Highly saturated blood, glucose all the time can lead to other complications like your eyes, which is retinopathy, your kidney, your nephropathy, arteriopathy. Sometimes you're prone to injury, poor wound healing. So there are a lot of other risks which also are a part of high blood sugars.
Wow, that's a laundry list of lot of problems that can happen if we don't control our blood sugar or balance our blood sugar, right?
True, true. So I think it's extremely important that one needs to invest time and effort in eating healthy, because once there is this entire chain sets across, then there are a lot of challenges.
Sure. So, but what are there particular foods that we should focus on a daily basis, or how do we do that?
Oh, great. That's the simple solution. So, food is so amazing that, like Hippocrates said, food is thy medicine. So, with just food, you can control, not just your weight, but definitely even your blood sugars. So, controlling your weight itself has a direct impact on blood sugars, because sometimes, as we see in type 2 diabetes, it's typically seen in obese individuals. So, then there is a lot of insulin being produced, but it's not very effective because there is insulin insensitivity. So exercise and food itself is the only mantra to address this. So there are dime a dozen food options that could be used regularly. Being, maybe we can go food group wise. So whole grains, be it millets, barley, oats, the ones with soluble fiber. Whole grains take a little longer for digestion. Pulses, now again, whole with the skin, chana, chole, or any, beans, be chickpeas, kidney beans. So the ones with the skin are a little longer to digest. So if you have a high fiber diet, be it a lot of raw vegetables, again, certain vegetables, like even your bitter gourd has a plant insulin called charantin. So from broccoli, which is very high in chromium. Now, chromium is a micro mineral that is needed for insulin synthesis. So it's very, very important that you eat a balanced diet of varied food groups, even from fruits, like even our Indian blackberry, the jamun. The jamun and the seed is very, very helpful. Fenugreek seed, fenugreek is the meaty seeds. So that has, again, yes, charantin. So it has certain, or trigonalin, sorry, the bitter gourd has charantin, the plant insulin. So trigonalin is the part that reduces your blood glucose, or helps control pre-diabetes or diabetes. So from fenugreek, from apple cider vinegar, we know that vinegar slows down digestion, and it's very helpful for diabetics to consume at least 1 tablespoon, from teaspoon to 1 tablespoon of vinegar, over their salad. So that way there is delayed blood glucose and there is no insulin spike. So there are several ways, and high protein. If you have dyslipidemia or you have high bad cholesterol, you may want to keep the saturated fats or red meats moderated. Though you don't want to consume too much of that, so sticking to plant foods sometimes is a good idea to balance that out. But a high protein diet can really improve your glycemic response. So even just eating your salad and protein before you eat your carbohydrates like your rice, roti, bread, or any other source can actually have a better insulin response.
Wow. So that's, so food as medicine, we all have heard about it, but we don't practice it, right? That's the problem. And that's why in the world, there are so many people living with diabetes or pre-diabetes right now. What about the herbs? Do you also recommend supplementing with the herbs or other supplements that you think need to be taken?
Yes, I think we definitely have these, moringa powder, which is nothing but the drumstick leaves to, yes. What are the herbs they used? We use a lot of these seeds, typically your fenugreek seeds, flax seeds. They have certain soluble fibers like beta glucan. Now, garlic, very powerful. So because raw garlic, but then the thing here to remember is raw garlic is what is effective, because when you cook the garlic, the allicin or the sulfur containing compound is not very available easily. So you need to take 1 clove of garlic, crush it, allow it to be injured for that allicin to be released, and consume it in chutneys or in any, even a salsa or a guacamole, where you are able to consume it in a raw form. That's when you have benefit. What about cinnamon? Now another tip here for our audience is, please remember to use Ceylon cinnamon, about 5 grams when you use regularly. It has or it has benefits where it can lower the blood sugars. But please remember that do not use the cassava variety which has coumarin. That's the anti-nutritional property. So people do not realize and use lots or large amounts of that. So these spices are also very helpful.
Sure. So you talked about fenugreek seeds. We talked about raw garlic. Then we talked about cinnamon, bitter gourd, right? These are some of the common foods that can help balance the blood sugar. Now, on fenugreek seeds, how do we take it? I mean, this is pretty, fenugreek seeds, do you cook it or what do you do?
So there are many ways you could take that. So some guys just sprout them overnight, eat them raw in salads. Now, my mom also was diabetic, so what she would do is just powder a whole lot of it, and she would just consume it. She'd make little tablets or capsules out of it with just little curd, and she would swallow that. Some guys can use it in cooking regularly, so up to 5 grams can be taken. But ensure that there is when you consume even about a tablespoon, please ensure that then you are consuming some food immediately in about half an hour, so that there is otherwise going to be low blood sugar, so that can lead to again hypoglycemia. So you do not want blood sugars lower than 70 mg per deciliter, because then you have other symptoms of feeling dizzy or uncomfortable. You will not be energetic, or you will be sweating. So that's not healthy, and that can also lead to other problems, like you could have an accidental fall and other things. So the rule is 15-15. So you want to consume 15 grams of carbohydrate. Now what could that be? That could be as simple as one small banana, or a slice of bread, one medium fruit, where you know that you want to wait for 15 minutes and redo your self monitoring of blood glucose, where you want to just check that if I feel giddy, and you already the ones who are diabetic will already know that I think I'm hypoglycemic, and then they automatically look at, always for emergency, they have these plain sugar candies. So, but the rule is 15-15. Wait for 15 minutes after you consume 15 grams of carbohydrates, and ensure that your blood sugars go above 70 mg, because hypoglycemia is also not a good thing.
I see. Wow, that's quite complicated. But on an average, if we take care of like what you said about the diet that you're talking about, protein dense, protein rich diet, plus all these things that you talk about, the cinnamon, garlic, fenugreek seeds, bitter gourd, and some of the other foods, we should be able to regulate our blood sugar on a daily basis with success, right?
Yes, overdoing anything also sometimes can too much of a good thing is also bad, because if you are already consulting a physician and you are on medication, sometimes based on your other comorbidities or health condition, sometimes you may be on medication. So please don't overdo anything, because one step at a time. This is like the elimination diet. Do try in pockets, and document or maintain a food journal, so you have a record of your body's response, and it's good to then kind of go step by step.
Sure, sure. We have a question coming up. The question is, what kind of cinnamon do you recommend? Some people say Ceylon is better than cassia. What are your thoughts about that?
We just talked about it.
Yes.
So please use only Ceylon cinnamon, because that is safe, and about 5 grams, which is about a teaspoon, is good. On
So,
that note, even curcumin, the turmeric itself is again very powerful antioxidant.
yeah. So the Ceylon cinnamon, you put it in a smoothie. Is that how you consume it?
Yes, there are many ways. Again, you could do this. So it's very easy to use the powder. So you could, if you're eating, a porridge or a oatmeal or smoothie, yes, you could use them in many ways. Of course, in India, we use a lot of spices, just powdered spices, also in our cooking. So it's quite, yeah, flavorful.
I see. I see. Any more follow-up questions or feedback and comments? You're welcome to put it in the chat window, and we'll take care of that. All right. What else would you like to summarize with while I'm waiting if someone has any other question?
I think one thing that we did not cover was the intake of good fats. I think, especially when you are looking at these kind of endocrine related issues, sometimes there's inflammation. So focus on omega-3, and that's typically a marine source, being fish, oily fish, sardines, mackerel, trout, herring, wild salmon. But in the vegetarian, then you can look at, your ALA, alpha linolenic acid, which is again walnuts, avocados, and look at good oils, the heart healthy oils like monounsaturated fatty acids. Our Indian oils are, in fact, they have very higher ratio of the good fats, monounsaturated fatty acids, the till oil, that's the sesame oil, the mustard oil. You have the rice bran oil, slightly recent one. So these oils are definitely good, but focus more on the omega-3, from pumpkin seeds, nuts. So if you can just eat a balanced diet on a day-to-day basis, definitely look at exercise, because exercise increases blood glucose uptake. Your muscles use your blood sugars. There is better response your insulin insensitivity. So there is definitely also weight loss. So which means that with weight loss itself, there's a better response to managing blood sugars. So exercise is another important vertical, parallelly goes hand in hand with your food.
Sure. So let's just talk a little bit about oils. You mentioned 3 oils, right? Rice bran, mustard, and sesame. Can we cook with them? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, undoubtedly you can cook with it. If cold pressed coconut oil is also extremely good, but however, it's a saturated fat. Clarified butter, which is ghee, extremely healthy again. But please understand the guidelines are you need only 7% of your calorie intake. So, which means it could be anywhere less than 1 teaspoon for the entire day. Meaning, it could be either of ghee, butter, or cold pressed coconut oil. So you can't dole out all that you want and desire. So you just have to understand portion control, be aware. So saturated fats, you have to eat lesser than 7%. So the good fats, which we talked of, the heart healthy fats, the monounsaturated and the omega-3. Now the omega-3 comes from dark green leafy vegetables to, your nuts, seeds, like I already mentioned.
Sure, sure.
So the conversion is very poor, about 15%, but from chia seeds to so many things that the vegetarians can regularly have them in the diet. They're also high in fiber, so it can help in satiety and blood sugar management and weight.
Well, thank you so much, Geetha, for being with us. We just wanted to give everyone a sneak peek at how to balance your blood sugar on a daily basis. If you have more questions, you're welcome to put it in the window, in the chat window after the session as well, and we will get back to you. With that, I'd like to wrap up the session. Anything else, Geetha, you would like to say before we wrap up today?
Thank you, Amita. It was great having this crisp conversation, and I hope we were able to give a whole lot of jargon.
Absolutely. No, we just want to give the crisp information, short videos, so that people can actually go and start implementing. That's the whole idea. Remember food as medicine, and just go over the video and go over the points that Geetha has talked about. With that, have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye. And make sure you balance your blood sugar. That's what I want to make sure. Thank you.